Video games have gotten more and more ambitious over the years, and while that's a good thing, we've also seen more and more games launching with more and more glitches. Hi folks, it's Vulcan, and today on Game Ranks, the 10 worst recent game-breaking glitches. Starting off with number 10, The Sims 4 and its excessive autonomous meanness. The world of The Sims is a lot more idealized than our own. Like, it's a world where everyone mostly gets along and your main concerns are not to burn down your house and not peeing on the floor. That's how
In der Ehe wird er nie über die Grenzen gehen können, weil er dann wieder in der BRD gesetzt wird. Mit anderen Worten, er müsste theoretisch nie rausgehen, außerdem Import-Export. Ja, müsste.
Supposed to be, at least. Back in October 2022, after a particular patch update, players started to report that their Sims were getting angrier. Family members, neighbors, and even random passers-by would just stop and yell at you. Big fight, generally cause chaos. Max has caused this excessive autonomous meanness, so the overall problem seemed to be that for whatever reason, the bugged AI was more likely to pick the mean options over the friendly ones. In most games, that'd just be a funny thing that wouldn't have a big effect on gameplay, but The Sims is all about personal connections, so suddenly having every Sim torpedo their relationships and make themselves miserable all the time, it was ruining some games. EA did eventually fix it. It took over 2 months though, so that's 2 months of streaming.
Wenn die jetzt pissig aufeinander waren, haben die einfach nur rot geleuchtet. Gut, das finde ich jetzt aber nicht schlimm. Das ist jetzt nicht game-breaking, finde ich.
Recrimination and ruined imaginary lives. From the outside, it's actually pretty funny watching people's Sims get all pissed off and transform their games into Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf for no reason. But it was probably pretty annoying for anybody who just wanted to play the game without every in-game moment turning into a screaming match. At number 9 is the standby bug from the Dead Space remake. While this is easily one of the best remakes of a game to come out in some time, it's unfortunately suffering from a few annoying game-breaking bugs. The most problematic one, it seems like the most players are suffering with, is the standby bug, where certain doors forever remain set on standby. You can't open them, so you can't progress. That's pretty game-breaking. For normal players...
Also das hatte ich nicht, aber das ist irgendwie witzig, aber halt auch richtig, richtig kacke, weil du kannst ja dann nicht weitermachen.
It's pretty bad, but also generally pretty...
Aber ist auch geil. Du stehst vor der Tür und es müsste weitergehen als Standby.
Easy to solve. Just reload an autosave from before you trigger the door. Of course, if you, for example, ran into this bug, tried to backtrack and see if the door would reset, and then came back only to find that the game had overwritten all of your pre-bug progress, that makes your only option restarting the game. That's a really specific case, so it's not a common thing, but if you're an achievement hunter or just like a challenge, this bug can really be miserable. If you want 100% complete the Dead Space remake, you gotta play through the game on the impossible difficulty, which is both extremely difficult, but also only gives you 1 life. There's no backup saves, and if you hit the standby bug, you're screwed. That's just
okay, das ist natürlich scheiße. Weil dann kannst du ja...
to the run. You got to start over. It's a real drag for what's otherwise just a fantastic game. It's not just one either. There's multiple bugs outdoors. And as of writing and recording, they haven't been fully eliminated from the game. It's likely that it will eventually, but for now, it's a really frustrating roadblock for anybody who wants that sweet foam finger unlockable. At number 8 is The Division 2. Ubisoft kind of finds new and novel ways to break their games on an ongoing basis, don't they? The Division 2 is probably one of those games that's been around for a while. It's still alive and chugging with a skeleton crew, probably overworked developers. That's the only way to explain just how messed up this bug is. Back in February, the developers were going to launch the 11th season of the game, called Reign of Fire, but they had to delay it due to what they're calling a localization issue, which sounds pretty innocuous, right? Just change some text around, no big deal. But in creating a fix for the problem, they somehow managed to create an entirely new problem, which crashed the game's build generation, which is the system they used to create updates for the game. So the whole system for updating the game was wrecked, and there was no way to update the game until they completely rebuilt the entire thing, which ended up delaying the next season for a few weeks.
Hä? Was war jetzt das Problem? Die Lokalisation. Das, was nicht gepasst hat. Das wollten die fixen und dann haben sie das ganze Game gebreakt. Ja, aber was hat denn an der Lokalisation nicht gestimmt? Wo einfach Sachen nicht richtig übersetzt. Ja gut, aber das ist ja jetzt auch nicht schlimm. Schlimmer ist ja dann der Fix anscheinend gewesen.
Weeks until they managed to hash the whole problem out. So while this was a major game-breaking issue for the dev team, it wasn't that big of an issue for the players. Like looking at the Steam page where most of the reviews are complaining about the ways the game crashes randomly on PC, a glitched out build generator is far from the Division's only problems, but it's definitely kind of one of the funniest. Like it started with a localization issue. How do you go from that to the entire process they use to update the game is totally wrecked and needs to be rebuilt? And number 7 is the Hogwarts Legacy Falling Forever bug. Another major game release, another set of nasty bugs. For the most part, Hogwarts Legacy is a lot more stable than what we've come to expect from new games lately, but it's not perfect, you know? Probably the most common game-breaking bug that players have been struggling with is this bizarre Falling Forever glitch, where resetting the game after opening a chest that for some reason doesn't give any players any rewards makes them appear in an empty void where they're literally trapped falling forever until you turn the game off. Some players had some luck by switching the broomstick immediately as the game loads, then fast traveling out of the endless abyss, while others managed to load old saves.
Das ist halt eine magische Welt, da kann das
But at
passieren.
least you're not trapped in the everything bagel. The worst of these bugs happens when players get trapped and suddenly all their autosaves are gone, so there's nothing you can do but reset the game.
Das
like
ist scheiße.
a lot of stuff at the top of this list. It's likely this bug will get fixed eventually, but as of now, I still see people complain about it, so it's still giving people problems. And number 6 is the Metroid Prime remaster. They even remastered the glitches. This has been a great year for remasters. In the case of the Metroid Prime remaster, it might be a little too faithful to the original. In the classic version of Metroid Prime, there's an extremely famous soft lock that could happen pretty late in the game, where if you don't pick up one of the artifacts required to open the final area of the game when it first shows up, it disappears forever and the game becomes unwinnable. That exact same bug is in the remaster, and it plays out the exact same way. The funny thing is that the bug was actually fixed for the European release of the game, so it's one that Nintendo has fixed in the past, but with the remaster, it's back. Most likely, the developers used the North American version of Metroid Prime as the base, so all those quirks got carried over to the remaster. And honestly, it's pretty funny to see the bug that so many people complained about back in the day back to haunt a new generation of gamers. This one's probably reasonable to assume they'll fix at some point as well, too, though. And number 5, High on Life, getting trapped forever in the space Applebee's. Yeah, that's something that can happen. Sounds like a joke, but it's not. Near the end of High on Life, there's a sequence where you need to have a solemn heart-to-heart with your talking gun. So you go to Space Applebee's, which is Applebee's but in space. The problem starts when you try to leave. Normally not much to it, but there's a pretty decent amount of players out there for whatever reason, where the front door just never opens. They're trapped and loading an autosave doesn't do anything. I've seen people who manage to glitch into this place and get trapped early as well. If you've got a backup save, players can fall back on that, but if they don't, the only option is to start the game over again. And that's a good 10 or so hours if you get stuck near the end of this game. So while the glitch sounds funny, for those affected, it's definitely not a laughing matter. And number 4 is the no weapons bug from Saints Row's, let's just say, not great reboot. This is kind of a collection of bugs calling itself a game, right? To call it a mess would be an understatement. It was so buggy at release, and even after months of major patching, it's still in pretty rough shape.
Das war aber echt schlecht gewesen.
It was attempting to be the game that it is, right? There's a lot of problems here that aren't bugs. That said, there was a really game-breaking, truly bizarre no weapons bug that seemed to affect everyone who played this thing at release. For some reason, at a certain point in the story, your character just stops interacting with everything. It's most noticeable with your weapons because you just can't use them. At first, that's all it seems like is going on, but after a while, you can't talk to NPCs, you can't interact with things on the map, or even get in cars.
Ja, aber du
You're
kannst
forced to
laufen.
wander around on foot, and you're unable to do anything. Like, it sucks. Some people manage to fix it with a hard reset, but it's not a guaranteed solution. If you made the mistake of saving while in the no weapon state, you're more or less out of luck when that happens. As far as soft locks go, this one's pretty bad. Sure, you can still walk around, but that's about it. And it's really only the tip of the iceberg with Saints Row. There were and are so many bugs, it'd just be impossible to list all of them here. Plus, again, it's Saints Row 2022.
War mal
if it had no bugs,
eine witzige Serie.
it'd still be this game. At number 3 is Dying Light 2's Infinite Death Loop. Not as bad as it sounds. While the devs at Techland definitely did get this bug swatted, it took a long time. For some reason, Dying Light 2 really struggled with co-op, and it's where most of the game's major bugs seem to come from. The worst, or at least the most widely reported, was this one where if you kicked while playing another person's game, then you get trapped outside the mission area and aren't given enough time to get back, which traps players in this literal infinite death loop where they die, restart in a no-win state, and die again.
Oh Mann, ey.
What sucks about this is it can ruin your single-player game.
That's
Certain players have
stupid.
managed to deal with it by playing with their friends, but that has its own problems because apparently this bug is infectious, and if you run into it while playing with a friend, it's possible it'll get saved into their game as well. So you'll have inadvertently not just ruined your own game, but also theirs. What really sucked about this one is the game didn't ship with the ability to make manual saves, so all you had were auto saves to get out of the death trap. Even though the first Dying Light had saves, the second didn't, and that made certain glitches like this one way worse. Like I said,
Gerade
they
bei
did
einem
eventually
Spiel,
fix
was ja
this
auch
by
ein bisschen darauf aufbaut, dass man im Koop spielt, weil es dann witziger ist. Hä? Warum spawnst du nicht einfach direkt bei dem, sondern irgendwo anders? Ha. Das ist das erste Spiel, wo es Koop gibt. Da sind natürlich Bugs vorprogrammiert.
A way to load multiple save files, but for players hit with this bug early, it was way too little, way too late.
Und das ist ja echt gar keine
Number
Zeit.
2 is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, a bug that deletes your saves. In a year of frustratingly buggy game releases, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet may have been one of the most broken, and that's really saying something. What's unusual about this particular bug is it apparently wasn't in the game at launch. Game Freak actually managed to make the game more unstable with updates, which almost sounds like a joke, but no, it is not a joke. It is fully real. Here's the thing, the 1.2 patch was supposed to fix glitches, but after downloading it, certain players started running into issues all over. Normal stuff that involved the network seemed to be corrupting players' save files, and this is just basic stuff that we're talking about here. Players assumed it was from buying DLC or connecting to the Pokemon Go app, but that's not the case. And for a Pokemon player, losing a save file is devastating. It's potentially hundreds of hours of progress just gone in a puff of smoke. And what makes this one so bad is how little it's understood. Nobody really knows exactly what causes it. Just that patch 1.2.0 is where save files started getting.
Aber da verstehe ich nicht, die machen ja nicht das erste Mal ein Spiel und es hat ja funktioniert und dann patchen die das und dann haben die einen Bug drin, der alles löscht. So, hä? Ich meine, hier 595 Stunden und stell mal vor, das ist einfach weg. Ich würde das Spiel wegschmeißen.
Corrupted. As of recording, this issue apparently isn't resolved. It's rare, thankfully, but that's not a lot of solace to players who have lost their save.
Ist aber ein Ding, was mich mittlerweile aufregt in so manchen Games, Auto-Checkpoints, wo du nicht selber Savepoints machen kannst, manuell. Ja, das finde ich halt auch dumm. Oder du kannst zwar speichern, aber dieses Speichern bringt dir halt absolut gar nichts, weil das Spiel trotzdem den Autosave nimmt. Ne? Das ist halt auch dumm. Ich meine, es ist ja gut, Autosaves zu machen, weil selber vergisst man es ja schon das ein oder andere Mal, aber ich finde in The Last of Us ist das ganz gut geregelt. Es wird relativ häufig gespeichert im Autosave, aber ich kann jederzeit auch selbst speichern und dann fange ich da auch wieder an. Das finde ich schon in Ordnung.
And the current players who want to know when this whole problem is gonna get fixed.
Weil es zackt halt ja auch hart, wenn du vergisst zu speichern. Ja. Und dann stürzt das Spiel ab oder irgendwas oder keine Ahnung. Man kennt. Okay, jetzt kommt die Nummer 1. Was ist die Nummer 1?
And finally, at number 1 is The Good Life, the no quest bug. Anyone remember this one? The Good Life is kind of a game that came and went back in 2021, 2022 with a lot of fanfare. It was meant to be Swery's next big thing, but after the 1-2 punch of Deadly Premonition 2 in this game, it seems like his big success with the first deadly premonition was a bit of a fluke. Maybe this game has its defenders, I don't know, but if there's one thing that can't be defended, it's this bug. If people are playing The Good Life for anything, it's most likely the story, but there's a big problem with it. About 3/4 into the game, which keep in mind is a long time and very tedious. Like, there's a lot of busy work involved, a lot of real pointless feeling stuff, and the game, suddenly and without warning, it's gonna stop. Like, it stops. Events are supposed to keep happening, and there's supposed to be more quests to play through, but they stop. Like, I don't know how else to put it. It makes the game impossible to complete, and at this point, it seems unlikely the developers will ever bother to fix it.
Man kann
if
doch
your
noch
game
laufen.
glitches, it sounds like there's really nothing you can do.
Reicht
you try
das
to
denn
load your
nicht?
save, but even if it's hours back, when you get back to where you were,
Das
it's probably
vielleicht
going
der
to
Twist.
soft lock
The
again.
Good
Nobody
Life.
knows how or why, so it's kind of a roll of the dice if you're able to finish the game or not, which they've been trying to clamp down on gambling in games lately, and I just feel like this is kind of, you're betting the price of the game on if you can finish it, more or less. It sucks, especially since it's probably just the super fans who are even going to bother getting this far into what is really a slog of a game.
Ja, laufen
They're
ist
suffering
so
just to see the story,
schon wichtig
and you're not even going to give them
für ein
that.
Spiel.
It's the worst of all.
Warum ist da ein Typ mit einem Roboterarm? Das würde ich mich fragen, nicht warum es keine Quests gibt.
And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget.
Aber nicht kein gutes Leben, wenn du nichts machen kannst.